So something interesting happened this morning, and I'm gonna see if I can articulate it because it was fascinating. That's it. This has been a weird feeling week. It's been super up and down, I would say, and in general, kind of just feeling stuck, feeling sticky, crunchy. That's the word of the week, but kind of like crunchy peanut butter. And sometimes it's flowing a little bit more in that it's melted, but it's still kind of oily and gooey and slow moving. And then other times it's just solidified and it feels really stuck and thick and heavy. And there's been a lot of agitation and just things, this kind of ricochet internally, in my experience, between feeling something inside of me that like really wants intensity. It's like it's craving some sort of intensity. And I'm not judging that. I'm not saying that is good or bad or right or wrong. There's none of that here. So we'll just get that out of the way. There's no judgment in this discussion. Just that there's something that's been like in me, but it also the challenge of feeling like it won't really come through. Like when I invite it to come through, when I offer it acceptance, it's like it doesn't really want that. It doesn't want, what it's craving is opposition. It wants opposition. It wants the intensity in the form of a struggle, a fight, a reaction. It wants a reaction. That's what I've been feeling. To varying degrees of intensity. Now, other parts of the time, the other part of time, there's been a lot of peace, really. But it is this kind of floaty, I don't want to call it separation. There was a feeling of connection, but soft. It's this soft, subtle, just sort of calm and steady sense. And then so this piece that really wants intensity and really wants reaction has become more and more agitated with that, with lack of reaction, with neutrality. So a lot of that was felt, a lot of this craving reaction, and a lot of the neutrality itself, and just this, everything is really, really okay. And we don't require this intensity that is actually opposition. It's oppositional and reactive. And again, there's no judgment, there's nothing wrong, it's not saying there's anything wrong with that craving. It's just, there's something else to it. It doesn't feel, doesn't feel really pure. I could feel that undercurrent of, it's labeled as wanting intensity, but what it really just wants is reaction. It wants pushback. It wants to kind of kick up a storm and to get other people kicking up a storm. But it's not getting that. And the more that it tries and it isn't getting it, the more frustrated it becomes. So this back and forth, and I was feeling it last night. And so it's been just a weird feeling week. Things temporarily are shifted at work for myself and for my partner. We work in the same place. And we've been busy. We've been busy doing different things, and we haven't really had the same chance to interact with one another. And we've both been feeling distracted with it. I mean, just busy with work. and doing some kind of different things too, especially for her, just doing things that are different. And, you know, she's having a whole experience with that. Other things just changing, kids going to school, just stuff like that. And so kind of finding footing, finding balance, or flow maybe is the better word. But and so I've felt this weirdness. I felt just missing her a lot this week, missing having more time with her. And then in the times that we do have together, a lot of this feeling of this other thing that is kind of rearing up and saying, you know, I demand reaction. Again, it labels itself as a craving for intensity, and it says things like there's no passion, like the passion is gone, which is objectively untrue. But in this very tiny, you know, segment of time where other things are happening, this piece has found a way in to kind of flare up. And I can see now that what it wants is reaction. What it wants is to create a problem. It wants to perceive a problem. It's an old pattern. This is what I was becoming aware of this morning. There's an old pattern surfacing, and I would maybe call it a part of the pain body. I don't know that any words, well, they don't mean anything really, and maybe they help and maybe they hinder understanding, but it's an old pattern that is used to, familiar with, a reactive, egoic attachment form of relating. And it was accustomed to that, and it called that love. And because it applied that label to egoic attachment and reactive transactional relating, now it says anything that is not this isn't love. And so it tries to get the mind going. It's trying to cause a reaction, because that's everything that it wants. It requires the reaction to continue existing. So it's trying to get an internal reaction and then manifests into eking forth an external one from someone else. And the way that it does this is by telling stories, right? By labeling things inaccurately, which is what the fucking mind does. And really just trying to generate chaos, to generate disturbance, to get a reaction, to cause a fuss. And so it's been doing that within me, and it was doing that within me, and I was feeling all this, just like feeling funky, feeling weird, feeling kind of awkward in my body, feeling out of place, feeling sort of disconnected from myself. And if I feel disconnected from myself, I can't feel connected to anything else, including my partner, because myself is my avenue to connection. So feeling just generally sort of disconnected, and that's an easy place for the mind to jump in and say problem, bad, feel more anxiety, feel more disconnected, seek an external solution instead of calming down in the moment and just accepting what's happening. Try to change it, try to fix it, because again, it's a problem. All of this stuff, and it amps up. And I was feeling that last night, and just kind of tense and panicky, and expressed a lot of that. And then the expression of it didn't get a reaction, because this is what I practice with my partner as I practice it with myself, is neutrality, is space, is allowance, acceptance of what is, non-reactivity. And that is unconditional love. That's actual loving. Non-reactive awareness, neutral, allowance, holding space, saying, okay, You're allowed to feel this, and this is not a problem. So I'm not going to react like it's a problem and reinforce the problem label, which is illusory. And actually, a reaction of my upsetness to your feeling upset or whatever it is just resistance to it. And it is reinforcing that you're not allowed to feel that way because I'm uncomfortable with it. That is how we're taught to relate in most of modern society. We're taught to react to one another, and we're taught that if we don't react, then something is wrong. Then you are wrong for not reacting to me. When the reactivity just perpetuates, and that's what it wants. Again, that's why there's that voice in the head that says it's wrong that you're not reacting to this, because it wants the reaction so it can perpetuate and continue the cycle of it. If it doesn't get that, it's aware the cycle is going to stop. It's not being fueled anymore. This cycle of reactivity, karma, I would call karma reactivity. That's just my personal version of it. Out of balance energy, yes, caused by reaction instead of neutrality and allowance and holding space. And so this entity that thrives on this wants the reactions to continue. And that's worked for a long time. For most of us. It's successfully created reaction. Triggering. Mutual triggering. We think triggering is making someone angry or anxious. It's anything. You can trigger... This is where it gets so tricky. If you get a reaction out of someone, you are triggering them. You are triggering that reaction. And it's likely that reaction in you is triggered by something else, triggered by something your mind has perceived, well, really an opportunity to get some energy here. And that doesn't mean you don't feel things. It doesn't mean you don't feel things. There's a difference between experiencing what's coming up and reacting, acting it out. And really, if you're in the space of love, which is a neutrality, you feel love. It's just this very stable experience. It's not... We think loving is feeling bad for someone. It's not. That's just attachment. That's just egoic attachment. True loving is witnessing someone in their pain, in their suffering, in their misery, and saying, okay, you're okay. And I'm not trying to take away your pain. I'm not trying to change your experience. I accept you, and I am so thoroughly grounded in the knowledge of the well-being of all that even witnessing you in this extreme discomfort, and it doesn't mean you don't help somebody who's bleeding to death on the street. Of course, you take that action in the moment, but that's different. This is more about the kind of crying wolf activity that ego participates in. This look at me and my big problem again. And even something else, even, because really nothing is a problem. But it's not wrong to have these reactions either. It's not wrong for ego to experience this. This is what it does. And so it's just acceptance. It's just seeing, I see that you are in pain. I see that you are feeling this, and I am honoring your experience. I am honoring and offering you a pure witness of your experience. I'm honoring you in this by not seeking to change it, by just being present fully in it with you and not reacting. I am holding ground. I am holding the space open. That's neutrality. I am holding the space for you to have this experience because it's right for you to feel and to experience. And for me to try to change that would be judgment of the experience. would be saying, no, I don't think you're supposed to be feeling this. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's safe. So I'm going to try to change it. And then a reaction comes forth. And that's not loving. Again, that's what we're used to. But that's not actually loving. I'm going to start driving here. So what happened this morning was we went to bed. I was still feeling this funkiness. I had expressed some of it, and she had held the neutral ground and really just silently accepted my expression. And we woke up, and I was still feeling weird, and I started to feel it kind of bubble up inside of me. And it was getting angry and antsy and more scared, more concerned, and there was a part of me that was really trying to resist it. I could feel the suction of it, and a part of myself didn't want to go there. It was resisting. It was internally judging this as not safe. Not safe to feel this. Not safe to feel this disconnectedness, this discomfort. Not safe to feel what was an irritation with my partner for not reacting, for not getting a response. And so I didn't have the awareness to notice this part yet. But that's what was coming up. And so there was resistance to it, and resistance. And then finally I just started crying. It was frustration. Then it was barely conscious, but there was a decision to just feel it. There was a surrendering to it. It was not a conscious moment of, okay, I'm just gonna feel this. It was just, it was like I couldn't fight it off anymore. And so it turned over. And it went straight into, I'm just feeling this now, and it feels like shit, and I feel like shit. And I'm just in this feeling of feeling shitty, and actually present in it, because I wasn't pushing it away anymore. And that continued for another several minutes. I'm crying. She's holding me, but again, not saying anything. And that the voice internally was just getting more and more frustrated. And I'm watching the voice, but I'm feeling consumed by it at the same time. It was just a lot of internal confusion. And the voice is saying, like, I want to know what you're feeling, but what are you feeling? Aren't you feeling something? You must be feeling something. Like, it wanted her to be feeling something. Again, I'm building to the moment of realization here, but that's what the voice was saying. And so finally I said out loud, I would like to know what you're feeling. And she said, I'm not really feeling anything. I mean, just like neutral. And that was triggering. That was triggering for this thing inside to be like, you're not feeling anything? What do you mean? I'm crying and you don't feel anything? Because again, that's how it's used to, familiar with relating. And I don't remember exactly what happened. I was still in it. I can't remember how this progressed exactly, but like a few minutes later, she had gotten up and I was putting the bed back together, and she came in and I, again, just like, I was feeling myself sulking, that sort of thing, and aware of that, and at least not trying to push it away anymore, just sort of letting that happen. And looked at her again and started crying, and she hugged me, and still quiet. And then suddenly it sort of hit me. there is where it finally hit me. I was like, oh my God, this thing wants a reaction. I could feel this desire for craving. I would call it a craving for a reaction. It was like, just feel something. This thing in me didn't want acceptance. It did not want to be accepted. It wanted to be reacted to. And the reaction, again, I'm sort of defining this as different from feeling. And this is tricky, but at least for the context of this discussion that I'm having with myself, reaction is different from feeling. It wanted to be pushed against in some way. It wanted, because it didn't want the neutral affirmation of acceptance. It didn't want the I see you and you're valid and this is allowed. It wanted an emotional response. It wanted a reaction. And so I'm musing more over this whole sadomasochism thing. And if there aren't perhaps different versions of that, if the sort of purified version, for lack of a better word, is a desire to feel and to be felt, but it's in a way that doesn't require response, that doesn't require reaction. It's like, I don't need to know. There's a trusting there. This is musing. This is just musing. I don't know about this, but there's like a trusting. In the purified version of, I understand that everything creates sensation. There's sensation in everything, and so I am feeling. I am sensing, and I am trusting. I am knowing that I am also imparting sensation. So I am feeling and being felt, and I don't actually need to witness. I don't need the reaction portion. I don't need you to like affirm that for me in an outburst necessarily. I don't know. I'm playing with this, and then so maybe the more egoic version. And again, this isn't wrong, but just the sort of a shade of difference being. The reactive component, the external component. It's like I don't trust that something is being felt, and so I need to see it. I need some intensity. I need it at the surface. That kind of thing. Again, not saying that's wrong. And I'm playing with this, so I don't know if that made any sense, but yeah. Anyway. In that moment, suddenly I realized this thing in me it didn't want to be accepted. It didn't want space held. It didn't want neutrality. It wanted polarity. It wanted a reaction. And that was really interesting to witness and to really feel like this thing. Of course, it's not technically other than me because there is nothing other than self, but it wasn't like the original me. It's a part, it's a piece, it's some other sort of thing that really felt like it was possessing me and trying to possessing this body and feeling what it was feeling and just trying to get what it wanted, which was just reaction. And when that awareness came to me, it dissolved pretty quickly. Within 60 seconds, I would say. I just suddenly was like, oh my God. And I stopped crying and was looking at it. And I said all this stuff out loud. Like, I see that there's this thing that wants a reaction. And it's so frustrated that you're not giving me one. And she just smiled and was like, yeah, I'm holding space. Like, yeah. And it felt so much lighter after the fact. Yeah. That's it. Just sort of musing, not trying to understand all of this. I just found that really interesting to have that experience. There's some crazy shit moving through right now, and it's happening internally, it's happening externally. It's amazing to see the external manifestations, and how all of that is shifting because of what's happening inside. And all of what's happening inside is a part of the energy that's flowing through at this moment. Just fascinating. No profound statements about that. It's just interesting to watch. Anyway, I'm gonna go inside now. Have a beautiful day. I love you.